Welcome everyone to today's webinar on eliminating the hassle in claims processing with automation. But before we do get started, I wanted to come over some quick housekeeping items. On the right side of your screen, there's a Q&A chat panel, so please feel free to ask any questions there. And if you're having any technical difficulties, definitely post there so we can assist you. And then we'll be sending a copy of the recording to all attendees at the end of this. So keep a lookout in your email for that recording itself. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive in. Your speakers today, so I am Mark Pinard. I'm the head of product marketing at Lob. And Christine, I'll allow you to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Byun, Director of Product Management at Metromile Enterprise.
Awesome. Let's do a quick review of the agenda today. So we'll review a little history in the claims handling in the traditional way versus the modern way. We'll then review the cost of outdated payments handling and how that is affecting your business. And then we'll dive into how to modernize payments processing and what that looks like. So to kick things off, I'll hand it over to Christine.
Thanks, Mark. Very excited to be speaking with you all today about claims automation, particularly with payments. To give you a little bit of background, Metromile Enterprise was launched as a way to share a lot of the innovations that Metromile pay-per-mile car insurance business built and perfected. That insurance business from the ground up built a data-driven claims experience that focused on digital self-service experiences. And our mission at Metromile Enterprise is to enable other P&C carriers like yourself with that technology, helping you reduce costs and improve both your customer and your employee experiences. So before diving into payments, we thought that it would make a lot of sense to take a look at the overall claims journey and how you might need to improve that going forward in this day and age. So let's look at a traditional claims process here. And then we can talk a little bit about how technology and Lob and Metromile together can be used to improve that going forward. This kind of claims journey should probably look quite familiar to you all. Here we have an intake process where a customer calls into a call center. They explain what happened, they answer some predetermined questions over the phone, and wait while their information is captured. And you'll notice throughout this process that there's usually a lot of manual interaction that's happening. There's a lot of passing from one adjuster or customer service representative to the next, and the customer's often left waiting or left after communicating something on the next step. So after F&OL, after that intake process, we move into assignment and triage. Traditionally, this is also a very manual review as well. Sometimes a rule-based approach can be used, but it can also be challenging even with those rules. How do you change those rules? How do you know that those rules are the right ones to be using to move forward with that claim? And what can often happen in this case is you need to reach out to the customer again for additional information that you realized you missed during that initial conversation. If we move forward here, we move to the assessment stage where there's, again, more manual processes required. Asking the customer, do they have the intent to repair? If they do, let's coordinate some in-person visits, assessing damage, determining the estimates, determining whether it could be a total loss. All very time-consuming tasks. And if that customer does intend to repair, we move on to the actual servicing of the vehicle here. And at this point, the adjuster is coordinating quite a bit between the end customer and a variety of vendors, including the repair shop network, the rental car network, replacement services if this is a home policy. All those interactions usually are happening over the phone or email. And then we get to settlement. At this stage, if the customer is getting paid directly, there are a lot of additional manual steps that we've spoken to our customers about. And the adjuster contacts the customer with the settlement details. They collect their payment preference. And if a check is requested, it's usually that adjuster and the administrators supporting the claims organization that are printing the checks, documenting them correctly in the financial systems. stuffing the envelope, shipping them out the door. There's a lot of manual process here that we know that we can improve going forward. So if we look at some emerging themes here, the claims processing can be so complex, as we all know, and that was even a simplified example. We know that there's a lot of frustrations that these sort of manual, long, elongated processes can have. We also know that customers are often looking to switch carriers when they have a bad claims experience. So we know that there's certain things, and we believe that these themes and trends allow you to improve upon these processes. We're seeing some of these themes emerge that we think can improve and transform the way carriers like yourselves provide services to customers. The first thing is really all about customer experience here on the left. We're seeing that providing self-service capabilities is really key to that. For everything from submitting the claim to providing that required information, just knowing exactly what needs to happen and where somebody is in that claims process. Customers just really value having that information at their fingertips. They want that control, and this is just becoming table stakes. Another major theme that's emerging, as you all know, is automation. And this has a direct correlation to customer experience and cost reduction. Rather than relying on a lot of those manual processes we just spoke about, data-driven models are emerging. You can automate a lot of the decisions during that process, reduce a lot of the error-prone administrative tasks, and even handle certain claims all the way through, straight through processing in a touchless way, or handle certain pieces of the claim process in an automated way, like payments, for example. And then just pulling all of that together, the third theme is really about the power of combining all of those self-service capabilities with automating those processes and integrating those with existing claims tools that you have today. So with this, you're achieving that seamless coordination between all the things and activities that you know need to happen in person, alongside the self-service digital mechanisms that you can allow your customers to have for that great experience. So taking a look at these themes and then kind of rethinking about what that future modern claims experience could look like, imagine this. What if there's a way for customers to submit their claim using a digital FNOL experience right from a mobile device? At this point, we have rich information capture, so we can ask the customer to upload photos of damage, documents, driver's licenses, just fill in information as quickly and accurately as possible. Data capture is so important at this point because all that data is used for the downstream processes and automations going forward. And then if we move to assignment and triage, rather than rule-based or manual assessment, what if you can take that data captured at intake, combine that with other data sources, such as telematics, if that's available, and use predictive analytics to detect fraud, determine eligibility for automation, just predict the next steps in a claim. And in this new world, certain claims, we can basically automate and push that all the way through to settlement at this point. In the assessment stage, imagine you can also capture your customers' preferences for repair. If they decide to go the non-repair claim to cash flow, we can leverage those photos they uploaded to orchestrate estimatics, avoid the hassle of in-person assessments, which can slow down that entire process. And then that leads to servicing. So rather than the adjuster coordinating between so many different vendors, imagine that the system is the one coordinating between repair shops, rental networks, and salvage yards. So this is the piece that where you can start ingesting partial automations into your claims. And then finally, disbursements, that's what we're talking about all about today. Imagine if that's completely automated, where when the claim is ready to be paid, you send a digital notification to the customer with all the details about the settlement. You ask them to choose their preferred method of payment. And then rather than adjusters and administrators having to handle all the hassle of printing and mailing those checks, imagine that's taken care of for you. And even notifications after the fact are sent through. That's kind of the world we're envisioning here. And here's a bit of a visual depiction of the types of end-to-end claims experiences that Metromile Enterprise and Lob can provide you. So everything that we talked about from the left, you can design this experience for digital first notice of loss. You can provide repair automation selection, rental automation selection, settlement information, and payment automation, all using our form designer, which allows you to brand and customize these experiences to match your brand as an insurer. Talked a lot about customer experience and how that user interface can really change the way a claims organization can provide great service to customers. But we really think of that experience as just the tip of the iceberg. There's a ton underneath the surface, if you will, that needs to happen in order to coordinate and provide these sorts of experiences. And our tech is what allows you to do that. So underneath the hood, we have a lot of different tools that connect different systems together. We have those data science models that allow you to automate those decision points along that claims process. We have a library that we've built over many years with a translation of those manual claims processes into the digital ones that integrates with a variety of third parties. And what's very core to that, obviously, is the connectors to all of these vendors that are involved in a claims process. Our out-of-the-box connector with Lob is just one example of that. By building these connectors for you, you can easily get that customer's information and then process the next step without having an adjuster or logging into a multitude of different tools or having to contact other administrators that are involved in the process. We also, of course, connect with the core claims policy and financial system. So you're always synced up there and you can marry all the existing processes you have now with the new ones. Finally, all of this is cloud-based. So you don't have to worry about managing, maintaining, and upgrading these capabilities on your own. So we talked a lot about a variety of things you can do to improve and automate your claims processes. One thing that we've observed, though, is that payments is really one of the first areas of opportunity that many claims organizations have as a priority. It's something you can get started with as part of a much bigger journey. And to talk a little bit more about why these traditional payment processes are quite costly, I'd like to hand it over to Mark.
Thank you, Christine. I really appreciate it. And the reality is, which I think if anyone has to walk away from today's presentation, is that I know it's hard to believe that given everyone's heads down on their cell phones and their iPads these days, and we live in such a connected world, but checks are still very dominating the payments market when it comes to claims. And in fact, like 75% of claims are paid by check. So there's very much a still large amount of customers out there that enjoy the aspect of having a physical check in their hand. And it provides them comfort, right? They feel like this is the easiest way and the trusted way that if I have a check, I can make the decision of depositing in the bank. And holding that piece of that, whatever it might be, is still very a popular method of being paid. We did a research around where we had 1,000 respondents of digital versus paper, and overwhelmingly, they still preferred paper versus digital when it came to the actual check processing portion of claims. And I think the big thing on the business side is that now there's no need to wait for account details. Once the actual claim is processed itself, you can get a check out in the mail, and that there's ways to automate this entire thing. It becomes a huge workflow efficiency with it being integrated, automated, and triggered, allowing you to kind of have that hands-off approach and allowing this all part of the actual system that Christine had mentioned previously. So what is it costing you to process checks currently without the automation? So think about the distractions and inefficiencies in the process itself. As Christine mentioned, as this gets handed off to the settlement phase, it is the internal actual processing and handoffs that happen as far as getting the check printed, getting it into an actual mail piece itself, and then handing it off to USPS and lacking the actual tracking events as that gets into the mailbox of the final recipient. And then on top of that, the money that you're losing for checks that don't make it there, right? So let's ensure that, hey, I've printed the check. Now I have customer support following up with them to ensure that the check is there. And if they have not received the check and it's lost in the mail, it's that process and handling of actually the check being lost and having to recreate it. And then on top of that, because of the inefficiencies in the handoffs during the settlement phase of creating a check, it's the 1 to 2 day delays in payment processing. So customers are saying, hey, I want a check, great, but this is still within the internal overhead of all the handoffs and processes to be able to actually create it, get it in the mail, and get it out to the actual recipient itself. And then the cost of the actual check, right? So the loss adjustment expense, as well as printing the check and then getting it into an actual physical envelope. This should be all automated and out of the hands of you guys, and there's technology out there to support it. What is it also costing your business just as far as the internal things that are going on, right? 5 to 10 minutes of an adjuster's time to actually sort through the payment details, grab any of the account details that they need necessary, and then process the actual check itself for fulfillment. And then on top of that, again, as soon as you include any human operation as part of this process, that opens up the opportunity for errors. Check handling, lost checks, whatever it might be, if you don't have insight into the process of that check as it goes through the USPS systems and hit off the mailbox, you really are handcuffed in what you can provide as far as support for the customer. And then that leads to a lower customer satisfaction score, right? If I don't receive a payment on a settlement that's very important to me, whether it's replacing a vehicle or actually repairing the vehicle, whatever it might be, that is going to lower my actual brand recognition and my satisfaction with my insurer due to delays and errors that may be just based on internal processes that have not been updated and could be. And now I'm going to hand over to Christine to actually talk a little bit about how we modernize this payment processing itself.
Thanks, Mark. I think given those points, it's pretty clear that there are several opportunities here to improve payments processing and essentially make that claims experience better for customers. Obviously, the burden on adjusters is taking time away from them working on more valuable activities. So that's one area that this solution can really ease it up quite a bit, free up a lot of time there. And remove a lot of the error-prone activities. On the second point here, it's all about improving that customer experience. So talking about self-service is really about giving control to the customer, making them feel in control of the process and of the choices, understanding the choices in front of them. So here with modernized payment handling, you give the claimant or the customer the ability to choose how they want to get paid. You give them the confidence that when they pick those preferences, everything is good and they get updates along the way. So ultimately, you're improving that overall end-to-end payment experience. I talked earlier about this not just being the customer experience, but it being the claims org experience as well. Reducing that cycle time and ensuring you make customers whole again as quickly as possible. So wanted to dive a little bit more into, how Lob and Metromile Enterprise partner together to make this happen. Lob has such a large network. This print and delivery network is quite optimized for a lot of the things that we're talking about here. So starting on the left, that Metromile platform, we're coordinating, as I mentioned earlier, everything from the beginning of FNOL, submitting the claim, understanding if the customer wants to get repair, if the car is a total loss, coordinating between a variety of vendors, sometimes straight through processing for these simple claims directly to payments. But once that disbursement stage is reached, this is where our out-of-the-box connectors with Lob really come to life. So we tell that claimant a payment is ready. They get a text or an email. They choose how they want to get paid. And in the case they want to get paid with a check, this is where Lob comes in. Mark, would you like to talk a little bit more about how that happens?
For sure. So Lob has actually created a proprietary print delivery network, is what we call it. And that provides customers with automated and on-demand access to enterprise print-ready infrastructure. I know it's a lot of big words, but basically what we have is 22 different print partners that are spread across the entire US. What this allows us to do is that we have built functionality in the way that we work with these print partners. So as the handoff happens, we have things like intelligent routing based on location. So our job is to actually make sure that we are the fastest in the mailbox at the lowest cost. And with this location routing, if the check is going, for instance, on the East Coast, we'll have an East Coast printer print that check to make sure that we're able to get it to that recipient as fast as humanly possible. The other things that a lot of people don't think about when it comes to vendor relationships and printing is things like capacity planning. So a lot of print vendors not only take on a single customer, but they take on multiples of customers. And what typically happens is that they reach capacity of how many jobs that they can take on. With Lob's delivery network, if a print partner is actually at capacity, then we're able to find the next nearest location to ensure, again, that we are the fastest to the mailbox at the lowest cost, and that your order is always taken. So it's that on-demand infrastructure that you can rely on. And then lastly, which has been huge over the last couple of years, is disaster planning, right? Things like natural disasters or pandemic, for instance, can shut down an entire print office, and it requires you still to be able to process checks, statements, whatever it might be. With Lob, now that we have 22 print partners, if, for instance, one of those partners is shut down, we're able to relocate the job to another print partner that is able to fulfill it, and again, be closest to the location in which you're trying to get to. And then I think the biggest portion of this, which I kind of alluded to earlier, is the mail tracking events. As what Lob has built is technology between us and our print partners, as well as the USPS, so that as a job is actually handed off, not only to the print partner, but to USPS, you have mail tracking events across every single point of that. So when they call your customer support and ask where that check is, they actually have visibility into when that last scan was, and it was handed off into the recipient's mailbox, which is huge. So it provides you all of that data at your fingertips to make better business decisions.
Awesome. We know that CAT events can often cause that claim cycle time to get elongated quite a bit. So being able to optimize that's so important. And then even giving that customer more information about where their payment is and having them gain that confidence that it's on the way is very impactful to the experience.
Sure.
All right, so we hoped before wrapping up to leave you with an example of what that customer experience might look like. So I mentioned earlier, this can be customized and branded according to your style, but this is our example with Fellowship Insurance. So at the time of payment, imagine a text or email goes out, and then the customer is then taken to this experience where they can choose between a variety of payment options. For the check option here, we can then ask them if they want to change where the check is shipped, default that based on their policy information. So of course, bringing all the information we know about that claimant into this experience to personalize it for them. And of course, that confidence. So once they select the payment information and where they want to get it shipped, we send out a confirmation email so they know, hey, I have a record that it's on the way, and I know approximately how long it's going to take to get to me. Mark also mentioned all of those tracking information that Lob provides as well. So we can surface a variety of steps along the way. For example, when it is actually mailed, we can let the customer know then. We can even let them know when it's in the delivery area and also when it's delivered. So just reminding the customer to check their mailbox and make sure they pick up their check. This also prevents a lot of calls back into the claims organization, just, for queries on, hey, did my payment get mailed? It's nothing that they need to search for on their own. They're getting, your customers are getting these updates on in real time on their mobile device. And if they have our portal, they can log in and see a track of everything that's happened about their claim throughout that entire process. All right, so I hope that gave you a good understanding of how Lob and Metromile kind of work together to make claim payments a really great experience for your customers and for your claims organization. We mentioned our pre-built connectors and the predefined process library. So that allows us to deliver this sort of solution in 12 weeks or less. So, if this is of interest or you have more questions, please ask or reach out. We'd love to chat more about it.
So with that said, because I know we covered a lot of information, there are a few questions that have come in. And if anyone has any new questions, feel free to go in and add them as well. But to kick things off, which is that this is a question I think that you and I, Christine, can tag team. What kind of cost savings and benefits can I expect to see if I'm still mailing checks to my policyholders?
I can kind of take the first part of that. We mentioned all of the work, the time and effort adjusters and administrators often have to undergo. So mailing that check, marking it in financial systems, stuffing envelopes, shipping it out, and the cost of the actual print materials for all of that as well. That's a lot of time that adjusters could be spent doing other things like managing more complex claims, talking to customers about those claims that have injuries or subrogations. That is where their time is better spent. So automating all of that from our perspective is a huge value driver.
Yeah, 100%. It's like the workflow efficiency that you see in the reduction in errors from the handoff to handoff to handoff, right? I think that the adjusters are more suited on being able to handle the customer requirements and making sure they're delivering the best to customer experience. And now you're actually arming them with all the data and everything they need at the fingertips in order to automate some of these manual processes that are probably causing lots of headaches. And that right there, I think, is a huge savings as far as for any firm whatsoever. Another question that has come in is, why focus on automating mailing checks when you can just allow for digital payment options?
Yeah, I think it's interesting in this digital age that the majority of claimants still do prefer check. And I think there's something comforting about having a document in your hand that you can, track and physically hold and enter to your bank. So it's maybe surprising, but I actually did that with my last claim. So
I know, and it feels kind of crazy. It really does, of like, wow, people actually still prefer paper checks, but it's the truth. And it goes back to that slide of like 75% of claims that are fulfilled are with a paper check. So reality is that you can't move straight to a digital world, and you need to support checks. And I mean, as part of that, right? So with what we've actually talked about in this webinar, now you can actually automate the process so that checks is just a means to the end, and it's less of the manual hand-holding process that takes in order to print a check and stuff an envelope and get it out in the mail. There is technology out there to support it, even if it is a manual payment on top of a digital. I think one question for Lob that had come in is Lob able to support invoicing and statements as well? And yes, Lob is not only a check printing platform that we support that, but we also support anything from acquisition marketing, letters, postcards, self-mailers, as well as statements in invoicing. So we can integrate directly with any of the software that you utilize in order to automate anything that you have going on as far as it requires printing and mailing. And then the last question that I think was Lob related is what other technology platforms can Lob integrate? And the big integrations that we have right now out of the box that we support is anything, because we're an API-based product. We can actually integrate with any of your systems, whether it's marketing automation, your CRM system, your CDP, or your iPass, anything where your data sits. Lob can actually integrate directly with that. So think about it from Salesforce, Marketo, Braze, Salesforce Marketing Cloud, really whatever it is. because we're an API-based product, we can integrate directly with that. That is all of the questions that we had today, Christine. So I just wanted to say thank you for joining me on this journey, and thank you for everybody else for attending. I hope that information was super helpful for you. And yeah, I think that's a wrap. That's all we got for today. Thank you.
Thank you.